Welcome back to my basement. In previous episodes, we have looked at my search application for gaming magazines of old, implemented on the excellent Whoosh library. I even named the last episode the final one. But as the number of pages indexed passed 200,000 and started to approach 500, and a total of 4,200 magazines indexed, the performance took a wrong turn. Something needed to be done. I therefore spent a lot of my free time during the last 3 weeks to integrate Elasticsearch. We will firstly just look at the demo where we race Elasticsearch and Whoosh head to head. Then we will briefly discuss the two search engines. After this demo you might expect that I will just flat out recommend Elasticsearch, but that's not the case. Let's see the two in action. Okay, so here we have the contenders side by side. As you can see, the instance of the left is configured to use Elasticsearch, which I have running locally on the same machine. And the instance on the right is configured to run Whoosh, which was the library I initially used. So yeah, let's fire it up. And we will scope the query to be between 1970 and the year 2000 on both instances. And let's do some queries. Let's first try one of my favorite games on the C64, Theater Europe. And we will execute the Whoosh query first, then Elasticsearch. And as you can see, the Elasticsearch result is immediate in 0.1 seconds, while Whoosh is actually still running. Okay, so it took 11 seconds. The initial query is basically two queries. First I query the index to get the number of results indexed, or the number of pages indexed. As you can see, both search engines have the same number of pages indexed, and as you can see, this one is powered by Elasticsearch and this one by Whoosh. Let's try to step to the next page in Whoosh and Elasticsearch, and Whoosh did it in almost 4 seconds, and Elasticsearch is instant again. Okay, but let's look at something else. Some people have claimed that Whoosh is just a glorified hash map in some ugly comments online. That is definitely not the case. As you can see, the relevance is actually the same as for Elasticsearch, and both are probably using the BM245F relevance algorithm. Okay, let's try another query. Rambo First Blood, and as you can see, the results are almost the same. If you have read the SAP magazine, you know that in their reviews they have an overall score for the game. So let's try to find a review for Commando, which is a game similar to Rambo, and scope the query to SAP magazine and issue the query on the Whoosh platform and Elasticsearch. And as you can see, almost every query takes around 3 seconds now on Whoosh. But even though it's slow, the relevance is just as good, and we find the review on page 2. So here we have it. Commando. It's an overall score of only 49 actually. That was surprisingly low. I loved that game when it came out. Well, yeah, as you can see, it's much faster to page through the results on Elasticsearch, where it's instant, whereas on the Whoosh library with so many documents, it's almost unusable. Wait, did I use 3 weeks to integrate Elasticsearch, you say? Well, yes. I used 1 evening to design the index schema and create an indexer in Python for the documents. Then I spent about 6 to 8 hours one Saturday to understand how to build a valid query for Elasticsearch that suited my needs. That's a lot more time than I feel should be necessary. I spent about 2 nights fixing the retro game magazine search UI and the configuration to support Elasticsearch. The rest of that time, about 2/3 of those 3 weeks, I spent trying to install and run a search engine on Windows 11. Let's briefly go through the trouble while we in the background watch my newly created Elasticsearch indexer push documents to my instance running in Ubuntu while that one worked. Firstly, I installed Docker on Windows. Then I understood that it doesn't work on the home edition of Windows 11. Luckily, I'm a Microsoft alumni, thus I was able to upgrade to Windows 11 Pro for an affordable price. Then I spent what felt like half a day inside my BIOS looking for the virtualization option, which I eventually found under the CPU category. This is needed for Hyper-V to function. Then I tried Docker images for both Lucene and Elasticsearch. Both crashed immediately on boot without a word describing what went wrong. I quickly lost interest in Docker. Then Windows Subsystem for Linux, or WSL2, came to the rescue. Installing Ubuntu in 1 minute flat was impressive, to put it mildly. Reading about it, I could only find good words and happy developers with the exception of some port forwarding troubles, but who cares. I installed Elasticsearch 7.5.2, which is the only version with good documentation apparently, and a fitting Python Elasticsearch library. Things were green, blue and purple. I spent the next day indexing documents and tweaking my search client, and I finally got everything working. Finished? Or then, from nowhere, port forwarding in WSL2 stopped working and I could not connect to my search engine on Ubuntu from Windows anymore. It was, however, working from within Ubuntu, but I had it working for 2 weeks. I spent almost 2 days trying to manually set up the port forwarding. A lot of information online, as there are exactly 348,123 intelligent people that has experienced the same issue before. Script has been made to automatically set up the port forwarding, fix firewall issues, etc, but nothing worked. I could not access Elasticsearch anymore. I even tried to downgrade to WSL1, but still no joy. In a desperate attempt, I spent a day installing Elasticsearch latest greatest version 8 for Windows on my box, only to discover that the API changes are pretty big. The documentation is so poor that I uninstalled it. Then, finally, one Monday evening, I found the Windows zip archive for version 7.5.2 and installed that. Installed the corresponding version of the Python API, Elasticsearch 7.13, and it all started to work. We were back to green, blue and purple. And now you might understand why I do not flat out recommend Elasticsearch over Whoosh. At least if you have a document set of less than, let's say, 100,000 documents. As you saw during the demo, the relevance is very good and comparable, if not identical, to Elasticsearch. It also has a lot of really great features that rivals Elasticsearch. Therefore, it's easy to get going and the perfect choice if you're just starting out learning about search engines. Then, when you actually need to index 200,000 documents or you need a really good query latency and you have a week or two to spare for installation and configuration, it's time to take the next step. Once you get Elasticsearch running, it's a powerhouse. I'll leave links to the zip archive of Elasticsearch I found usable for Windows and how to install the Python library in the video description. I'll also leave a link to the uploaded code that now supports both Elasticsearch and Whoosh. That's it for this time. If you find content like this interesting, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time.